about not being paid while you're trying to do the job right is incredibly tough. So we want to thank you and many other businesses in New Jersey who are giving meals to federal employees, to financial institutions. And as a member of the Senate Banking Committee, I want to applaud those financial institutions that are forbearing during this period of time for federal employees on their mortgages, on their loans, on not having bad credit referrals. And I am going to be sending something out, hopefully with a bunch of my colleagues, to a large universe of financial institutions that our federal employees should not be hurt during this period of time. They should not find themselves in the midst of a foreclosure that they cannot control. They should not find themselves with penalties because of payments that are late. And they certainly shouldn't get bad credit ratings as a result of what the federal government is in the midst of. So I want to appreciate those financial institutions that have already done this on their own initiative, but there's a lot more that can be done, and we're calling upon them to do it as well. None of our federal workers asked for this, but they are in the midst of it. And the reality is these are exceptional people who do critical work for our state and our nation. And to be very honest with you, many of them are very talented, and if they chose to do something else, could make a lot more money. They do this in part because of their passion. They do it in part because of their commitment to service, like our Coast Guard men and women who are protecting us. And as a state that is a coastal state, we understand the importance very vividly of the Coast Guard for national security, with the mega port of the East Coast, the Port of Elizabeth and Newark, with recreational fishing, commercial fishing, with the risk of lives. We understand what the Coast Guard is all about. And to have the Coast Guard, which I consider a branch of our national defense, not to be paid is pretty outrageous, which is why I've sponsored legislation with my colleagues to make sure that in a shutdown, and I hope we never have one again, that Coast Guard men and women get paid during a shutdown, because they're as part of the national defense as any other part of our armed services who are getting paid. So it's incredibly important. Now, this shutdown did not have to happen. Back in December, I voted with all of my colleagues in the United States Senate to fund all of the remaining 9 or so departments of the federal government that are presently unfunded. It was a unanimous vote, a unanimous vote. And for those of you who may follow politics, you know that these days unanimous votes don't take place all of the time. It was a unanimous vote. It was largely based upon the president's budget requests to the Congress of the United States. And yet, after that was done, because of some right-wing commentators, the president ultimately backed off of his commitment, a commitment that Vice President Pence made very clear to us in Congress, that if we voted for this budget that included between $1.3 and $1.6 billion for border security, that the president would sign it. Only after these commentators made the comments that they did the president renege on it and insist on what is an ever-changing figure as it relates to his desired wall. So this could have ended in December, should have ended in December, when we unanimously passed this. It can end now, because once again, the House of Representatives has passed all of the bills necessary to keep the government open. These are the same exact figures that was unanimously approved by the Senate. And what's stopping us is that Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, just will not post these bills. And I believe, as I said on the Senate floor, I think yesterday, that if he posts the bills, you will see a strong bipartisan vote that would send a very clear message to the president that he might very well be in override territory should he decide to veto it. So we have an opportunity to get this government open, and we should, both for the American people and for the nearly, I thought it was 5,000, but I did the math yesterday, and it's closer to nearly 8,000 New Jersey federal workers who are affected by this shutdown. So there's no reason for the government to be closed. It should open, and it should open immediately. There are the votes to do so. And the last point I'd like to make, why must you keep, even if there is a dispute over what border security looks like, and there is a legitimate different point of view as to what border security looks like, why must you keep all the other departments of the federal government that have nothing to do with border security closed and held hostage to this one question? So at a minimum, fund everything else. And then if you want to continue to dispute the question on border security, that remains in the Department of Homeland Security. And even there, I would argue you extend it for a period of time while you're negotiating. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense for national security. Doesn't make any sense for our economy. Certainly doesn't make any sense for the 800,000 federal workers and several million federal contract employees who are also affected as a result of the shutdown. So with that as a premise, let me invite all of our fellow New Jerseyans here who wish to tell their stories. It's not easy to tell about financial difficulties and challenges in your family. I appreciate your willingness to do that. And with that, Emily, you want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Menendez. And I just want to say I really appreciate you coming out to hear what we all have to say. I told Senator Menendez when he on the Senate floor, he talked about how I was dipping into my savings to pay my rent and some of my bills. And while I'm going to be okay until the end of the month, you know, I don't know what's going to happen after that if the shutdown continues and I don't see a paycheck. But I'm lucky compared to a lot of other people to have savings, and I feel very lucky in that. What I really wanted to highlight were some of the projects that I would normally be working on and some of my colleagues would be working on if we were working right now. One of the things that the EPA does is we do a national survey of all water bodies every year. So this year we're doing rivers and streams. Right now, we wouldn't be doing any sampling, but we have to train our contractors, train the state people who help us, getting money for that. If the state helps us, they actually get money from us to help us. So the state could be losing out on getting funding if this shutdown continues. You know, after Hurricane Maria, so many of my colleagues went down to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands to help restore clean drinking water to the people that live there. EPA being one of the first agencies to get into the remote regions of Puerto Rico and the mountains, to go to those remote communities and to restore drinking water, clean drinking water for these people. One of the things that I would be tasked with doing is doing a post-Maria stream survey that I'd need to put together to implement this March, but I'd need to secure funding, write a project plan, put together a team, getting the right contractors to assist. All of this is the planning that goes into these very intense surveys that I need to be doing right now during the downtime, during the down season, to get ready for that. Purchasing supplies. These are all things that we're not doing, and we're not getting prepared for the work that needs to be done in the summer and index periods. My team also does routine wastewater treatment sampling. They go to sewage treatment plants. They make sure that they're not discharging anything bad, you know, nutrients, bacteria, that kind of thing into our water bodies. These are inspections that are being suspended right now. Now, I know the state of New Jersey does a lot of that as well, but EPA assists New Jersey and New York with these projects. Another thing that people on my team have been involved with is doing testing for lead in drinking water in schools, in New Jersey schools, New York City, and upstate New York. I've recently heard that there was something that they found more lead in drinking water just recently during the shutdown in New Jersey schools. That is something that our group might respond to. So, I mean, these are just things that, you know, Also, we have our state-of-the-art laboratory in Edison, New Jersey, where we do sampling for Superfund sites, routine sampling for Superfund sites, the wastewater treatment plants. We do in-kind services for other projects that we might be working on, and assisting volunteer organizations who don't have the funding to do that testing themselves. Additionally, the emergency response people going to respond to hurricanes, a lot of people going out to assist with the wildfires out in California and Oregon, and also international assistance. There's some people in my group that go abroad and assist people in Africa with figuring out how to store their chemicals properly, how to manage what they've got. That is assistance that they might not get otherwise. I mean, I know it doesn't just affect New Jersey, it affects the entire world in a way. Sorry. And also, EPA gives out a lot of grants. We give out a lot of grants and money and funding to New Jersey DEP and the Department of Health to do the kinds of routine sampling and things that we've delegated to them to do. So this is all kind of work that is suspended. A lot of the planning is suspended until further notice. So thank you.
Thank you. Just 2 points. Safe drinking water affected. Discharges into the ocean. The reality is that our tourism industry depends upon a pristine beaches and water quality. And the reality, the state that has the highest number, unfortunately, of past mistakes of Superfund sites. So those are just 3 of the many areas that Emily just talked about that are being affected negatively along the way. Who would like to go next?
Thank you.
Just introduce yourself.
How you doing? My name is Mike Morrell. I'd like to thank you, Senator, and the staff for having us here. I work for the Bureau of Prisons. I'm at Fort Dix, New Jersey. Fort Dix is one of the largest standalone prisons in the country. We have 4,000 inmates, and we have 400 government staff working there. We're considered exempted employees, so we have to report to work. We've missed 1 paycheck so far, and by next Wednesday, that's the cutoff for our next pay period. It's becoming a dire situation. We already have a dangerous job as it is, and to have no money coming in. Myself and my coworker Rod, we're union members. We're part of the executive board of the union, and we've spent the last 2 weeks calling shelters, food shelters, and soup kitchens to try to get staff members and their families fed. Myself, I could maybe last another paycheck before things get really bad. Some guys can't. Some of the newer guys we have can't do that. Like I said, I mean, it's dangerous as it is. And to go another week without a paycheck and possibly have to make a decision whether to pay for gas or come to work and feed your family or come to work is dangerous for the staff that are there, dangerous for the inmates, dangerous for the community at large. And, I'm a Coast Guard veteran, and I feel like, we deserve better than this. And it's becoming an increasingly difficult situation. And not a lot of people talk about the Bureau of Prisons because they're just locked away and we don't have to worry about it. But it's becoming an increasingly dangerous situation.
How about a Coast Guard mother? And when we say Coast Guard mothers, because the Coast Guard are part of the military in a sense, so they can't come out and speak for themselves. So it's great that the moms are willing to speak out for them. Anyone who wants to share any stories?
Yeah, we're all here together.
Here you go.
We're all here. So we are the Coast Guard moms. Oh, yes, of course. My name is Colleen, and I'm here with Grace, Amy, and Katie. We're here representing Coast Guard mothers across America. This is a dire situation for our Coasties. It is just, it's not a partisan issue. This is a real life or death issue for these Coasties. Our Coasties are standing in lines at food pantries. Our Coasties don't have the option to not go to work. Actually, if they up and quit their jobs, they will be court-martialed. It's catastrophic what they're up against. I can speak for my son particularly. He's 22 years old, born and raised at the Jersey Shore. Right now, he's stationed in Louisiana on the Mississippi. So he does have enough money to get through the next month with his bills. But after that, mom and dad are going to have to float him. And here's the obstacle. Coasties are humble. very humble. So the money will sit in the Venmo account and he'll do what he has to do to get by with what he has to get by with. And he'll put others before himself. He works with coasties that have babies. He works with coasties that, you know, both breadwinners in the family are members of the Coast Guard. So, you know, that's a real issue. These kids still need food every day and diapers and formula, and there's no money coming in for these families. So whatever brings awareness to the situation that our Coast Guard is up against, we are ready to go. And we're ready to sit with any senator. We're ready to sign any petition, because this just has to come to an end sooner than later.
Yes, it does.
Grace.
I'm in the same situation. My name is Grace. My son is only 21. He doesn't have a family to feed. He has help. He won't take it. Money sitting in the Venmo. He won't take it. Would rather just stay home or go for a run instead of the gym. And he's more concerned about the ones who have families and kids. And but so he's being humble right now. But I can't be. We have to. And Amy has a different story because her son has a baby, right?
Yeah, my son is married. He has 2 children now. He had a baby last week during the shutdown, and it's a difficult time for them. And I think, too, we're part of this ripple effect. They keep saying there's 800,000 people out of work, but this is affecting us hugely because we will be the ones to step in and pay his mortgage and to put gas in the car. And, of course, diapers and food for the children. It's funny because they are a very, very proud lot. I think anybody who's in the Coast Guard can tell you that. And I was in Jacksonville where my son is stationed last week because of the baby being born. And we had to get together a potluck meal. I feel they're very proud, but I feel they're teetering, Senator. I feel they're teetering. Like, this is tough. The whole group I was with, they were all dads and moms of little children, and they're having a hard time. I hope there's something that can be done.
Under difficult circumstances, congratulations on being a grandma. But Coast Guard members are, as I said earlier, from my perspective, part of the national defense. And they should be paid as any other member of the national defense. And there is new legislation, but that's not going to help them until, for now, at the end of the day. So there's new legislation to do exactly that. So in any future shutdown, that they would be paid. Yeah, that they would be paid. But right now, that's not going to satisfy. That's not going to satisfy.
Thank you, Senator, for being here today. Thank you, Rachel, for hosting. I'm not going to relate my personal experiences or the current situation of my Meyer. I'm not going to relate my personal experiences or the current circumstances of my agency, but I'm here today to support everyone here, as well as the 800,000 federal employees who are being denied the ability to go to work or who are going to work and being denied their pay. But I want to make a very important point. As a federal employee, I'm responsible for learning and implementing the various aspects of ethics. Primarily, I'm talking about the Hatch Act. Now, as you are probably aware, the Hatch Act precludes me as a federal employee from being involved in partisan politics. And the grand irony is that it's nothing more than partisan politics that are impacting all of us and preventing us to making a living. So I want to thank you very much for being here and hosting this event today. Oh, I work for the Food and Drug Administration. Meyer. M-E-Y-E-R. There's my first name. Slobotsky. I have trouble spelling it myself, actually. S-L-O-B-O-T-S-K-Y. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Food and Drug Administration, critically important for the safety of the food that we eat, the safety of the drugs that we take, prescription drugs that we take. They do incredibly important work that goes to the very health and safety of our communities. And let me give our host an opportunity.
Hi, thank you guys all for coming today. I think, the staff here at Montclair Bread Company, we feel really helpless There's not much we can do to make any significant changes in the government. The only thing we know how to do is bake. So last week we said that any employee affected by this can come in and get coffee, bread for their families, sandwiches, whatever we can do. And then as Senator Menendez pointed out, we took a delivery to the TSA staff to feed them and give them a little sweetness in their day. We'd be happy to do the same for your staff, to come and give you guys some lunch, some bread, and just anything that we can do to help our community and the greater community in the little way that we know how. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you all for your continued service.
Let's hear from our air traffic controllers. Incredibly important. All of us who fly, we know, whether for business, to meet family, to go to a special hospital, we take it for granted. But those movements and the safety involved with them are incredibly important. It's an incredibly stressful job. There are not enough air traffic controllers as it is, so the stress grows. And if you're trying to move airplanes, thousands at Newark International Airport every day, and you're thinking about not the screen, but you're thinking about how I'm going to pay my mortgage, that doesn't add to our security.
I'll just say thank you for the kind words, Senator. I appreciate it. My name is Ray Adams. I'm with the National Air Traffic Controllers Association at Newark Airport. And I'm just here to support the other federal employees that are not being paid at this time, either furloughed or not being paid on the job. So thank you for your service. And I hope that we get through this shutdown quickly. Thank you, Senator.
Could you talk a little bit about the challenges of the job? And
I can tell you, as the Senator said, that it is definitely a challenging profession. I've done it for a long time. We are meant to be on task at all times. We are meant to be focused at all times. And these challenges that are being presented to us, these fiscal challenges are definitely weighing on people's minds. Thank you.
Sir? My name is Rod Copeland. I work for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, FCI Fort Dix. I'm the president of AFG Local 2001. I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you, Senator, for hosting this. Thank you. I think with the Coast Guard, Federal Bureau of Prisons, air traffic controllers, anybody that's an accepted employee, my heart goes out to anybody that's furloughed. I mean, nobody should have involved in a lot of the work that we do. Guard, air traffic, working in the prison system. When you go to work, you should be focused on the task at hand, not how you're going to pay your bills, put your kids through college. In some instances, buy diapers or formula. It really is kind of disgraceful. Before I've been in the prison system for 22 years, this is the worst I've ever seen. Through huge staffing cuts last year, we lost almost 100 employees just at FCI Fort Dix. So that's exasperated by this. We have guys that are getting mandated working 16-hour shifts when other people can't make it to work. I think most people are coming to work because we depend upon each other to do the right thing, and we're loyal to each other, and that's why we go to work and perform the functions that we do. But at some point, 1, 2, 3 paychecks later, that's going to run out. At some point, you need to make a choice between, am I going to pay for gas to go to work to an agency that's not paying me, or am I going to stay home and feed my children? We're public servants. I've never seen it before where we have to go to the public to assist us. I shouldn't have to seek public assistance. I shouldn't have to make phone calls to food banks to feed my staff. I shouldn't have to look for donations of diapers and baby formula for guys that should be receiving a paycheck. It's a crisis. It's horrible, really. There's no other way to describe it. And I thank you, sir, for hearing our plight.
My name is Christine Gallagher, and I work for the Internal Revenue Service, and I'm part of the large business group. And what I would say from the IRS standpoint, we are the largest revenue generating body for the government. And so the role that we play, like us or not, is very important. And so from that standpoint, we're not part of my two coworkers here as well. We're not part of the accepted group that has been brought back. We are primarily tax auditors, but we ensure compliance and we ensure that everyone pays their fair share. And so from that standpoint, you know, we take pride in the work we do. We play a very valuable role and we want to go back to work. So we thank you for keeping our story relevant, you know, keeping us in the spotlight, because my concern is this has been dragging on is we are no longer going to be the headline, and we have to be the headline until this gets solved. So.
Thank you, Christine. I'm Cheryl Asnes. I work for the Internal Revenue Service in Large Business and International, and I work for a pre-filing program, the compliance assurance process. So right now, if I were working, I would be working on preparing the training materials. Our program was revised to make it more relevant and more acceptable and more accountable. So a lot of the materials have to be revised, and I'm coordinating the training, but I can't do that. I'm not allowed to open my computer. I would get fired if I opened my computer and worked on it. So it's very, very frustrating for me. I find the shutdown to be very demeaning and upsetting. And they're telling me that they don't value my skills. I'm a CPA. I have an MBA degree. I have a master's in Spanish. And they're telling me I have no value. So that's how I feel it is for me personally. We have savings. When we're living off of savings, not everybody is at our age bracket. We've already sent our kids to college and we've been saving for retirement. So we are living off of our retirement savings. That's not what it was supposed to be for. But I talked to my friends last night. I either sent them text messages and spoke to a few. So I talked to Patty. Patty is a secretary in Edison. And Patty says, if they force her to go back to work, how will she pay for gasoline? And she's married. She's better off than a lot of other secretaries. She has savings. But what will happen to Zenobia? Maybe Zenobia doesn't have savings. What about the clerks? How can the people who work in the service centers, how can they afford to get? They're the lowest paid employees. They're not the professionals. So not everyone I talk to is from New Jersey. These are the phone numbers that I have on my cell phone. So John S. is from Farmers Branch, Texas. He's worried about the paycheck to paycheck employees, as I am. How will they manage? Ace is in Atlanta. You know, his retirement paperwork didn't go through. He was scheduled to retire. So that's why I would call him. Did it go through ASA? He said no. He's worried about statute problems. We have statutes of limitation. And then how will people pursue their work? And there'll be amended returns. They won't be processed. You can't just give people refunds. There are rules. They can't get a refund if it's more than a certain amount of money. Also, there's delays of hiring. We're supposed to be bringing on new people. They can't be brought in. And they have other training that those people are working on. My friend Lisa in San Diego was supposed to be teaching in the new hire training, but she won't be able to do that. And she's also living off of savings. So, you know, it's that's not what we were supposed to happen for us. She's worried about the effect on the economy and also about the effect on federal workers at the low end of the pay scale. I asked Rima from New Jersey. She's also worried about the innocent employees who are suffering for no reason. And Howard is a manager. He said, how long can this continue, this furlough? He's upset about it. And Hank is another manager from Mountainside, New Jersey. He said it's just very disrespectful to federal employees. So that's what I have to say.
Hello, my name's Myron Asnes. I'm an IRS worker. My wife is Cheryl Asnes, so we both were getting paychecks from the federal government. Neither of us are getting them now. One thing that concerned me is that people were speaking on my behalf as a federal worker without even knowing what I thought, and speaking on my behalf as a veteran, because I was in the U.S. Navy when I first got out of college, because it was during the Vietnam War. So I find it very frustrating. Other people are saying what they feel I think without even asking me. My big concern right now is health insurance. It's very important that we're covered by health insurance. Normally we pay it by having withholding from our paychecks and nothing's being withheld, where we lose out on our health insurance and have to pay much higher prices for medical help. And we've had significant medical bills in the recent past. That's about all I could add to what Cheryl already has said.
Well, let me thank you all for sharing stories because, as I said, it's never easy to talk about your financial or other challenges. I've done this with healthcare where people talked about their health challenges, and that's incredibly personal. And this is personal too. And I think it gives everybody a taste of what you do that affects all of our lives every day in a very poignant and powerful way. And it gives it a real face to a number, and that number becomes desensitizing. But it's real people with real challenges, with real families, with real consequences. So I think our collective call is very simple. It's 3 words: open the government. Open the government. We can negotiate anything else, but open the government. You can't have a negotiation with hostages. We don't believe in hostage negotiations. And right now, federal employees are hostages, unnecessarily held in that context, simply because of a determination over one issue and one issue alone. So all these federal departments should be open. There's unanimous agreement on what is the funding for them. That's not in question. The only question is the president's desire to have originally 1.6 billion, then it went to 5 billion. Now it's at 5.7 billion. It's constantly a moving target to build a wall. That is deeply in question as to, is that the best way to have border security? We believe in border security. We've voted for money. Sometimes in Washington, people start throwing billions around like it's funny money. It's real money to the national debt and to the taxpayers of the nation. $1.6 billion is a lot of money, and especially when you haven't spent the $1 billion already that was given for some of these purposes. So I appreciate all of you coming together and to talk about what you do on behalf of our nation, on behalf of our state, and as New Jerseyans, to talk about your lives and how they're affected. And again, thank you to our host. And we hope you can keep baking, but not to give just to federal employees at some point to make money. So thank you all very much. I'm going to excuse our guests, and then I'm going to take questions from the press because they're going to want to talk about this and other things. And I don't want to necessarily capture you, especially as federal employees, into that line of crossfire, so to speak. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Still using this? Okay.